everybody, my name's Alice and I'm your online piano tutor on YouTube, as always giving you the best and most professional piano lessons that you can have. So welcome to lesson 3. Just to quickly recap what we did in lesson 1. You remember that we did if I can hold that up, in lesson 1 we did just the scale of C, and then in lesson 2 we did a few more scales. We added the scale of, if you can see that, the scale of D, the scale of G, A minor and D minor, and we just quickly went through sharps and flats as well. And at the end of lesson 2, so actually it would have been lesson 2 part 2, I just showed you the scale of C hands together. And I also said that you could, if you wanted to, have a go at doing the rest of the scales hands together as well. So if I just quickly spent a moment or two just going through the scale of C hands together one more time, and then maybe just demonstrated to you the rest of the scales hands together as well, just to give you a better idea before we move on to a book today. We'll just do that. So, okay, so hopefully you guys can see that. Just to quickly recap then, the scale of C, we should by now know the scale of C hands separately, and whatever we did in the right hand and whatever we did in the left hand, we were going to put that together with both hands. So by now you'll have something that looks like this. Okay, and also the rest of the scales, D major, G major, A minor and D minor, we should have this now. This is D major right hand. And the left hand. I'm not expecting you guys to be playing it that quick, but of course if you can get your speed up, that's obviously going to help you as well. That together, whatever I just did, right hand there and the left hand there, just simply going to be putting together, just exactly the same as we did with the scale of C, but of course we're going to be starting on D, and we're going to be adding in an F sharp and a C sharp as well. So the scale of D together. Exactly the same process. If I just quickly demonstrate the scale of G for you as well. And the scale of A minor, which remember we said is going to sound a little bit different. And our D minor. So those are the rest of the scales hands together. So today I'm very excited because we're going to start looking through a book. Now the book that I prefer to teach with is called the Complete Piano Player Book 1, and what I'll do is I'll just put a link to where you can get that from in the description bar just underneath the video, so you guys can see where to get that from. Let me just zoom out a little bit as well. But this is the book I like to go from, and this book I paid £7.95 for. So you can probably find it on Amazon, musicroom.com, or probably your local music shop. It should be pretty easy to get hold of. You shouldn't have a problem. So I really like this book for a number of reasons. I'm not going to go into all of that now, but as I always tell my students, if I was actually going to write a music book, this would actually be the book that I would write. This has been written by a guy called Kenneth Baker. He's written a few other books as well. He's written a lot of books for keyboard, for electronic organ as well, and he is absolutely brilliant. The way that he teaches you to play the piano, keyboard or organ is just, in my opinion, it's brilliant. But anyway, enough of all of that. What you do get with this book as well, in the back of the book or somewhere, you'll get this, which is like, I think you just sort of put it on your keyboard and it teaches you the letters and the notes. But I mean, we covered that in lesson 1 anyway, so what I normally say to my students is just get rid of that, you don't need that, because we've already covered it in the first lesson, so you don't need that at all. So going back to the book, so there are just a few things in this book that we just need to go through before we actually get on to any actual playing. It's really important that we do go through those bits, otherwise we're just not going to know what's happening. Okay, so I'm just going to very quickly take you through this book. This actual book, as well as it being kind of an aid for teachers such as myself and the like, this book can also be used for you guys at home if you want to teach yourself. But like I say, everything in this book is exactly as I would teach it. So, you know, it's great if you want to sit through and read it as well. So the first part here is just how to sit correctly. So you can have a read of that yourself. The piano keyboard. So again, I've already gone through that in the first lesson. That tells you the names of the notes on the piano. I just turn the page. So now it's just teaching you the rest of the notes on this page, which again, we've already done. So you guys can recap that in this book. The importance of middle C, which again, we did in the very first lesson. So we've covered that. Finger numbering as well, which of course we did that, but again, you guys can go and recap. We'll just ignore that page for a minute on this one. Okay, now this is a nice little interesting bit. So now if you go to, this is page 14, how notes are written. So if you have a look, the first thing is these 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that our music notes are written on, are what we call a stave. So if I just flip to further on in the book, for example, you can see here these 5 lines that we're talking about here. So there's always 5, never 6, never 4, always 5. Okay, the next thing we need to know, there are 2 places that notes can be written. They can be written on any line, or they can actually be written what we call any space. Now, if they're written on a line, if I just draw a couple in, there's a few examples here, very neatly. It's where a line would go right the way through the note. So, like so. Maybe another one there. Okay, and in between a space would be not going over the line, I'm staying completely in between the lines, but like so, in between the spaces. And as it says here, this one just at the top counts as a space and one at the bottom counts as a space. Moving a bit further down, this symbol here is what we call a treble clef. And this indicates all the notes for the right hand. Please excuse my dodgy handwriting, but I'm trying to lean on a piano and write this. And this sign here is what we call a bass clef. And as you probably guessed it, it covers all of the left hand notes. Now this is where middle C comes in a little bit, because, let me just zoom you out a little bit, because as you can imagine, on a piano we have 88 keys on a full-size piano, and if we've only got 5 lines in our stave, that's an awful lot of notes to be encompassing in just 5 lines. So middle C for me on my piano is this one here. So basically the treble clef, which was this symbol here, this treble clef, basically at the moment covers all the notes from middle C going to the right. So all of this area, which would be with your right hand. With that bass clef, which was this one here, that covers all the notes from middle C going downwards. That's why we call it bass clef, because it covers all the bass notes, and the treble clef covers all the treble notes, which is the higher notes. So moving back to the music again, it says here that we've got middle C played by the right hand and middle C played by the left hand. So middle C, we know where middle C is on the piano. Middle C actually written on the music is here in the treble clef and written here in the bass clef. Now technically it is actually the same notes, but as I said before, we can't just have one stave, which are our 5 lines. We can't just have one stave covering a whole range of notes that our right hand and our left hand would play. So what we do is split it. Middle C is basically our split point. So everything higher than middle C, which would go in here, is covered by the treble clef, which is why middle C is at the bottom. And then in our bass, because we play all the notes lower to the left hand side of middle C, they would go in here. And that's kind of what it's explaining in this just little bit on the side, that middle C basically is kind of the middle of those 2 clefs. So if I were to play that on the piano, it would be this one. And if I were to play this note on the piano, in fact, it would be exactly the same note. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so if we can all turn now to page 17 to a piece called I Know Where I'm Going. We're just going to put in a few little bits and bobs here before we can actually move on to doing any actual playing. So we normally have here at the top 2 numbers, and I'm going to put 4 followed by a 4. Now, they are technically the same number, but it is always the top number that's most important. I'm not going to go into what the bottom number means at the moment because it doesn't really matter at this stage, but the top number tells us how many beats we have in a bar. Now, again, some of you may or may not know this, but again, if you're not quite sure, this is going to be ideal for brushing up for you. But if you don't know it, then obviously this is going to be all new to you. So we haven't actually got any bars in there at the moment, but we're going to put them in now. So we've got different types of notes here. We've got these black ones that are here. Now I know they have different letters next to them. This one's got a line through it, but that's fine because it's our middle C, as we just did over the page previously. So I know they're in different places, but depending on where they are on these 5 lines, just means we just play a different note on the piano, like A, B, F, D, G, whatever. So we've got all these black types of notes here. We've got this one here, which is very similar to the black one, but actually it's not coloured in. And then another type of note we've got, very similar, again, it's not coloured in, but it does have a dot next to it. And the other one, which we don't have in this piece, but we do have down here, are these types of notes, and they don't have any little stick or any little line going up to them, which actually we call as a stem. So what I've written at the top here, I've just copied out one of each type of note. So these black ones, which are these ones here, these ones, which were the ones similar to the black ones, but they just weren't coloured in, the ones that have the dot next to them, and the ones that don't have a stem at all to them. Now these black ones are worth 1 beat, these ones here are worth 2, the next ones with the dot 3, and the ones without any stem are worth 4 beats. So we can use this now to put in some bar lines to create some bars. So a bar line, for example, would be, if I just were to show you, is going to cover from the top of the stave to the bottom. So a bar line would be something like that. We can't stick that in for a bar line, that's no good, or it can't go slightly over and slightly above or over, that's no good as well. It's got to be exactly from the top to the bottom. Hopefully you guys can see that I'm doing that clearly enough. So going back to these numbers here, top number said 4. It means we're allowed 4 beats in every bar. It's probably going to help as well if you guys just make a few notes on your book so that, you know, when you come back to this, you've got something that you can help remember you with. So 4 beats in every bar. Now, how many beats are these black ones worth? Well, I can't remember, so what I'm going to do is have a look up here. It says they're worth 1. So there's 1 beat. This is another black one, so that's another 1, so that's 2 so far, plus that one which is 3, plus that one which is 4. I've reached my 4, so what I'm going to do now is put in a bar line. So you can do this on your book as well once you have it. We're going to move on to the next one. This is worth 1. How many beats is this one worth? So having a look up here, it says here that it's worth 2 beats. So 1 plus 2, which is 3. I'm looking for another 1. This black one here I know is worth 1. So I'm going to put my bar line there. Carrying on, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, I know is 4. Sorry, that's a bit wobbly there. And 1 plus the one with the dot, which is 3, that's 4. So I can put my bar line in now, but I don't want to put my bar line there. When I get to the end of the line, what I actually do want to do is just finish my bar line here. It just makes it look a little bit neater. There's still 4 beats, sorry, in this whole bar, but it just looks a bit neater if I put it there. So you guys can carry on and put the rest of the bar lines in. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for lesson 3 at the moment. Just be getting the hang of the rest of the scales hand separately first, and then just do the kind of the little bit of theory that we did in that book as well, just so you can get your head around that. What you really do need to do before we do move on to playing any pieces is to make sure that you remember how many beats each of those notes will wear. So thank you very much for watching, and please tune in again for lesson 4.